Thanks for joining us, Michael. An important win midweek, a clean sheet that inspired confidence, but you could do with starting against Luton the way you finished the second half, couldn't you? Because the first half, Stoke seemed to be starting slowly.
I don't think we were particularly slow in the first half. I think it was one of those games where we had, I think, control of the game. We possibly didn't do as well with the opportunities to create when we had. We had a number, I think, of good opportunities that we could have done better with. So, but equally, yeah, where we were in the second half, we were better. Our level of performance was better in terms of the quality of our play as much as of anything else. I think the quality of our play in the first half needed to be better, particularly in the final third of the game. But overall, I don't think, starting games is always a little bit difficult in this environment, in empty stadiums, and sometimes that can be down to the opposition, the quality of how they start. But it's not something that gives me a lot of concern. I think tomorrow we'll get, the right response, and the players are obviously, in a positive frame of mind after winning the game on Tuesday.
You said you'd make changes, which you did, and they must have given you food for thought for the Luton game. You've got Rhys Norrington-Davies, who could possibly come back into the team. Are you tempted to freshen it up again with another game early next week?
Well, yeah, I think we're in a period now where we have 3 midweek games, I think, leading into. I'm just trying to sort of look at my board behind me here, where we have midweek games and home and away, tough games to come in that run. So I think there's a balance between freshening it up and getting continuity as well, which is important. So we look, obviously, Rhys becomes available again. Morgan will be out, given the nature of his injury. Nathan Collins will be out. So, yeah, I don't want to freshen it up too much. And we've 1 or 2 options. But what I do know is over this period, and particularly over the next sort of 6-7 games, we are going to have to utilise the squad, and we're going to have to create freshness in the squad, because I think I think we're at that point in the season where this is the most difficult part for all the clubs. This is where the pitches are a little bit difficult. The mindset of the players, I think the players, this is where they start to get a little bit mentally tired as well. And we have to keep them focused and keep them motivated, and obviously keep trying to get results to push our way up the league.
Well, obviously you've mentioned Morgan Fox won't be available. What is the nature of the injury, Michael?
Well, he has a hamstring strain, unfortunately. Not the hamstring that he previously did. It's not a reoccurrence of that injury, which, if there is a positive to take from it, that would be it. But it's an injury on the other side, and it will keep him out for a number of weeks. It's a little bit early to define that exactly, but it was quite a significant tear in the hamstring. And as I say, he's not going to be available in the near future.
On the injury front, you said that you'd have a word with James Mclean, although it's not an injury. Have you had a word, and is he up? I can imagine he'd be ready and fit and raring to go.
Yeah. Look, the situation around James is, unfortunately, it's not football related. James now has to get his focus, and he needs to do his talking on the pitch really, and make sure that we get the best out of James. I think when he's been at his best, and I look back to his form last season prior to lockdown, we were getting a very, very good version of James. And at times this season, we've had that version as well. And going forward, that's the version that we want to see between now and the end of the season. I just think at times in games, he's maybe, his overall play has not been where we know it's capable of being at. We could never, one thing James gives you, he empties the tank in every game for you, regardless of what position you ask him to play in. And I think, he just needs to find that little bit of quality again in his play and have a good end to the season.
And Stephen Fletcher was looking a little bit uncomfortable before he scored, but he stayed on. Is he fit and raring to go?
Yeah, he's fine. He just got a kick when he won the ball back, and it was a little bit sore. But I think we're seeing that the Stephen Fletcher that we had prior to him unfortunately colliding with the electronic advertising. In terms of what we're seeing physically, is the output of data in games is as high as it's ever been at any point in the season. You look at it, he always looks a threat now. I look at the 2 goals that he's had disallowed in recent weeks, marginal offside decisions that have gone against him. And he now looks like he's in that, he's going on the pitch believing he can score in every game. And, I think it's been unfortunate for Stephen, because when we have him as we have him now, fully fit and injury-free, I think we have a striker that's, would be in double figures in this league had that, season not be disrupted. But unfortunately, as I say, he's had to deal with that. And it's important he stays fit between now for the end of the season, and he pushes on and, adds to the number of goals that he has.
The other thing that you appeared to do on Tuesday was you tweaked the formation a little bit, and the impact seemed to be quite significant, in so much that Powell was playing what you would call a recognised number 10. Are we liable to see that formation again this season? Are you pushing for that to be more attacking?
Yeah, I think, where we see Nick in the team is it's varied. There's games depending on the opposition. Good example of that. At Norwich, we felt we would need a third midfield player as opposed to number 10. And so we played Nick off the left, where at times he's been very effective as well. In the game against Sheffield Wednesday, we felt we could play with, Joe and Jordan Thompson as holding midfield players, and that would allow Nick then to play as a 10. So, it's a slight tweak really in terms of the shape of your midfield and the roles that you give them in it. I thought it worked well. I thought he was very effective in the game. And he's been effective, really, Nick, in most positions that we play him. You have to give him a little bit more licence when he plays as a 10, and you got to make sure that he doesn't abuse that licence that you give him, and make sure that he plays within the structure of the team as well, which he does well. And he's very good at getting the ball back for you as well, particularly in the opposition half. So, we that's a system that, we have played this season. Sometimes we haven't always started with it, but it has been a system that we've gone to on occasions in game. Watford away was an example of that as well. So, I think, the key is to get, the right system, but more importantly, to get the players in the right mindset and the right level of performance to win the game.
Well, Luton lost in midweek. Nathan Jones returning would probably have added a bit more spice to the fixture if fans had been allowed into the ground, but we are where we are. They're not high scorers away from home. In fact, they've won 2 of their last 4 away by the odd goal. So maybe the first goal for Stoke will be important tomorrow.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, where we are at this minute in time in the league and where a lot of teams are, the first goal is very important in all of these games. And I think Luton have had good wins away from home. Bournemouth away, I think they won 1-0, which was a big result for them in recent times. So it shows they're capable of coming away, keeping a clean sheet, and obviously, getting that all-important goal to win the game. So, yeah, we've got to make sure that, we try and get the first goal and we push on from there. It's look, there's no secret, goals aren't coming that easy for us at this minute in time. I think we've a lot of play, and at times, as I say, where we really need to focus on as a team is improving that quality of play in the final third, and we'll continue to beat that drum, because for me it's, a lot of what we're doing as a team is very good. We've obviously got a very high number of clean sheets. I think a lot of our play has been good in terms of the control that we've had in a lot of the games. But ultimately, probably that just final bit is the bit that's been the difference between us drawing too many games and not winning enough. And that's something that we continue to improve on. And, it'll be a difficult game tomorrow. And we have to make sure that, when we're dominant, as I expect us to be in the game, that, we turn that into goals.
Finally from me, I know you've already mentioned Ryan Shawcross and you've made a lovely statement about him, but can you confirm that he'll be at the game tomorrow, and there's probably going to be a presentation for him? And in a few words, sum up how you felt he contributed to the club whilst you were there.
Yeah, there will be obviously, something tomorrow in terms of presentation to mark the end of Ryan's career here at Stoke, which has been phenomenal. I was just looking back at his numbers there before I came on, and I think he's just under 500 games for the club in all competitions. He's obviously had, played the majority of those games in the Premier League. He's also had played in a cup final for the club. He's also played in the Europa League for the club, and it's an amazing career and particularly in the modern game in this era for players to have that level of devotion and to spend that with one club. And it's sad when it ends. And for me, it's the frustration that I've had is that I've probably not seen the best of Ryan because of injury, and I think that's the frustration he's had in this period as well. And the recurrence of injury has been very frustrating for him. But equally, I think it's also a time to recognise the career he's had at the club. And the thing for me is that he's getting a brilliant opportunity. I've played a season in America myself. I know what that's like, and it's come at a brilliant time in his career. I think that the idea of Ryan possibly playing for another club out with Stoke City in England would be very difficult. And I think he gets it's an amazing opportunity, which I know he's very, very excited about. But I think, people will always remember Ryan for his contribution to Stoke City, for his, the number of games he's played in the Premier League in a period which was a hugely successful time for the club. And, the frustrations of the last 18 months certainly don't define the career he's had. But for me, as a manager, he's been terrific because he's been very, very supportive. It's nice when you have someone who spent that length of time at the club to kind of give you that reassurance at times to say, look, you're going the right way. There was a lot needed to be addressed at the club, and it's nice to have the backing of the club captain who, at times can give you that little nod or that little pat to say, listen, when things maybe aren't going so well, to give you that reassurance that, the decisions that I'm making are hopefully in the best interest of the club. And so he was very, very supportive to me. Great to have around the club because he keeps the standards within the club as a person. He's great humility and he has very high standards, and that's something that as a group we're going to have to replace and make sure that we keep hold of that, because that was a big part of what Ryan brought to the club as well.
Thanks very much. Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you,
Michael.
Thanks. George, if you want to fire away.
Thanks for joining us, Michael. First of all, just touching briefly on the injury to Nathan Collins. What's the timescale? Do you have one, the length of time, or is it too difficult to say at this moment in time?
No, it's not now, because we initially, Nathan went for X-ray, and then obviously we had to follow that up with the scan. So my understanding at this minute is that Nathan will probably have to undergo a small surgical procedure. And it's unlikely that he'll be available for the rest of the season.
It's a body blow as well, isn't it, really? Because he's been an integral part of that back four which you've been building and blending together.
Yeah, it's a huge blow because, and as this is a little bit of the difficulty we face, because Nathan was obviously playing in a back four as a right back, but he also played for us in a back three as a right-sided centre-back. So it's almost like losing two players, because we're losing a centre-back and the right back and Nathan. And Morgan Fox, to be honest, is similar, because Morgan had played left centre-back in a back three, and now obviously we lose him in both positions. So that is disappointing, because both of those players give us very good flexibility in either system that we played. But unfortunately, Nathan's had a very good season for me. His first real season where he's played week in, week out, had to deal with 3 games a week, the nature of the championship, the intensity of the championship, and he would have played a lot of games between now and the end of the season. But unfortunately, the injury, it looks like it's cut a season short, and he's just got to use this time to make sure he's in good a shape as possible when the season restarts again.
But that's one of the major factors, Michael, you've brought to the team, isn't it, really? The versatility of these players. You just mentioned a couple of players there where you can utilise them either across the back four and even the midfield. And that's helped in many ways, particularly when you've had these serious injuries.
Yeah, we've had to deal with a lot of injuries. I didn't really realise it was as many. When you also take into COVID, for example, we Harry Souttar missed, I think, 3 games just because of COVID and self-isolation. James Mclean was the same. So those situations, are almost like basically having a player injured, really, if you think of it. And so, yeah, look, the squad has been tested this season, and it's been tested in a truncated season with a very high number of midweek matches over a very reduced space of time. So I think it's probably inevitable that our injuries are higher. I'm sure most other clubs are in a similar situation, and the versatility of the squad is important, and that's why people like even Tyrese, you know, who could play anywhere across the front three positions, is a big blow. And it's why people like Nick Powell are so important, because, you know, we've played Nick as a number 8, we've played him as a 10, we've played him wide off the left. So, you know, that's what you need in the squad, and that's what you need to keep you, you know, at the right end of the league. It's very easy in this league to get a run of injuries and suddenly you get into a bad run of form. So as I say, you know, we're always looking for that versatility in terms of when we bring players to the club.
And moving on, of course, you've got Luton at home this coming week, and it's an opportunity back-to-back home wins, and that's a boost in midweek in more ways than one. And certainly Luton will come here because they will lay down a system that you've probably been used to and know all about. And Nathan does have a certain way of playing, but it's all about you and an opportunity, Michael, to put yourself back in the reckoning. You are just a couple of points off the top 6.
Yeah, look, you know, our concern is primarily on ourselves. Luton have proven that they can get results away from home. I think Nathan has a way of playing. I think it's probably a little bit different from maybe what he tried to do here in terms of, you know, the system of play that they used. He's got some very good players, some good young players at Luton, and obviously he knows the club very well, and he's done very well there since he went back. So, but we, you know, the focus is on the opposition and you know, the strengths and weaknesses that we see in their play. But the most important thing is about our level of performance, and you know, that's what we'll continue to work on. And the important thing is to win. As I say, it's very difficult to get consistency in this league. There's not many teams get it, and those that do generally are at the top end of the league. And we have to, you know, get better consistency in our results. And this gives us an opportunity to win back to back. We're not really concerned at the league table at this minute in time. We're concerned about getting consistency and winning games and putting a run of form together, because we know that if we do that, we'll inevitably move up the league. I don't think there's any real benefit in constantly looking above us, thinking we're whatever 6 points off, and if we win a game, we're 3 points off. The most important thing is, in the nature of this league and how the results go in this league, is that you try and get some form of consistency in your results. And, you know, we've drawn too many games recently, and we have to, as I say, turn those draws into wins.
Thanks for joining us. Good luck tomorrow, Michael.
Thank you.
Dave now, please.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
That's great. You've spoken about being more proactive in the final third. You've also spoken about Nick Powell and Tyrese Campbell and the roles that they play up front and the changing systems to fit in with that. But also you've spoken about Stephen Fletcher, and occasionally he's had injuries and this sort of thing. So the main backup, of course, the main out-and-out striker you've got as a backup if Stephen Fletcher does, you know, become injured again, is Sam Vokes. And Sam Vokes has struggled since he arrived here, and 2 or 3 different managers now. And he used to be such a prolific striker. Is it the fact that the system doesn't seem to fit Sam Vokes, or is it something else that seems to have held him back since he's been at Stoke?
Well, I can't really comment on the time prior to, obviously, me coming to the club. I think it is at times. I think Sam's probably more suited to play in a front two, where, you know, he has possibly a more mobile striker around him, which benefits from possibly his ability to win flick-ons and to affect the opposition defenders. He's at his best when you can keep him in the box and get crosses in the box. So, yeah, I think at times the system is difficult for Sam. And you know, you look at Sam's career and at Burnley, you know, he was used very effectively off the bench as well in a lot of games. And, you know, for me, I've used him a lot in that way, and I think he's been effective. And I think it's frustrating for the player, obviously, as well. You know, players want to play. Sam's no different from any other player. And like any striker, you know, if you're out of the team, you're just waiting for an opportunity to get to go and improve yourself. And so, yeah, I don't think, I'd agree, I think it has possibly been a difficult time for Sam, but it's also been a difficult time for Stoke. And typically in difficult times, strikers suffer more than any other players because it's more difficult for them in that situation to possibly have the numbers that they would have had elsewhere. So, but, you know, Sam's still got 18 months of his contract to go here. and we will have to get as much out of him as possible. And equally, he has to do that for himself as well.
I was going to say, is there any way he can get more games, or?
Well, I have to pick the team that I feel is the best to go on the pitch. It's as simple as that. And if that means that Sam Vokes is the best man for that game, then he'll get selected. As simple as that. Whereas at this minute in time, I think that Stephen Fletcher with Nick Powell off him is a very effective combination. At times away from home, we've played Jacob Brown through the middle. That has allowed us to press the game more in terms of, Jacob gives you real energy at the top end of the pitch. He covers big distances. So it just depends on the game and in terms of the opposition and how we want to set out ourselves to play. But, Sam's in the squad every week, and like any player who's not playing, he'll want more game time. But as I say, hopefully if he's presented with that opportunity between now and the end of the season, he takes it.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Nick Clitheroe has got what he needs. So, Ben, is there anything from you before everybody else leaves and just leaves Pete?
Yeah, I've just got one for me, if that's okay, Michael. Yeah. Obviously, we spoke about Luton, obviously, away from home. They have only scored 7 goals in the Championship away from home so far this season, which is the least in the whole division. You've got third most amount of clean sheets with 14. That must give you a little bit of confidence looking at both of those stats going into it, or do you just focus on the game completely and not relate to these kind of stats in terms of mentality before the game in the dressing room?
Yeah, we don't really focus on that too much, to be honest. Clean sheets are good because clean sheet means that at least you've got a draw. That's the bottom line. And clean sheets, I think, are key. If you look at the league, for example, and I look at the league table, there's teams above us who are pushing for automatic promotion, who have only scored, a couple of goals more than we have, and yet, they've got a good points deficit on ourselves. So, they've been successful because they've not conceded many goals. Where we've probably been a little bit, and we need to improve, is that the goals that we've conceded have been quite high for the number of games, given the number of clean sheets that we have, which means that in those games, the numbers tell you that we have to score 2 or 3 goals to win a game of that nature, which is always a challenge. You don't want to be having to come and having to win games 3-2 too often. So that's an area we need to improve on. Luton will come and be difficult to play against, of course they will. But they'll come having obviously got recent results away from home, and they'll come with an element of confidence that breeds confidence. They also did very well last year when Nathan went back to stay in the division. It was very difficult for them, and Nathan did a great job moving them away from a very difficult situation. So this, to me, is the same as every championship game, really impossible to call. But obviously we go there with off the back of a positive result, one that we badly needed. And, we take that forward and whilst we expect a tough game, we expect to win it.
And the final one from me, obviously, you got your first win in the week against Sheffield Wednesday in 11 games. I presume, how important now is it for that to be a foundation to build, and not only for this game, but in the forthcoming games from now until the end season, to get a little bit of a run and fluency going?
Yeah, it's important because it's the start, and every team's the same. When you're not winning games, you're looking for that win to get to start, hopefully, a winning run. As I touched on earlier, it's very difficult to string that together in this league, but it has to start somewhere. And for us, it started on Wednesday night, or Tuesday night rather. And the responsibility for us as a group and as a club is to go and match it with another good performance and another win, and that's the only way you can do it. I don't think looking at fixtures and over a period of time and trying to think, well, this is a good opportunity to get wins, helps you in this league. I think we've possibly done that a little bit in the past. We thought we've got a good run of fixtures, and we drew too many of those games. So our focus has to be game at a time and make sure we win this game. And if that kick starts us on to a good run of form, we'd be more than happy with that.